When prepping for the coming struggle, one thing you need to look into is a good survival knife, something that sits between a tactical knife and a survival knife. You can use it as like a weapon and like tactical applications, as well as out in the woods for bushcraft. I kind of designed this one off a few different versions. Artificial knife scales of micarta. Actually, this is made from a painting canvas, the stuff you put down when you're painting a room, not the stuff painters use to make art. But I usually use black, but I forgot to get some, and this is what I had laying around, so it's what I used. Kind of has a convex grind, which I don't do a lot of, which is kind of odd because it's really well for like handmade. You can't really get it like with machine ground. I mean, I did use a belt sander, but that's not important. But either way, it's kind of like, instead of coming straight in, it kind of like, it's got a little more rounded, which again has to be done by hand, but it lasts a little longer, it's a little more durable than survival applications, as well as like sharpening it is, it's a lot harder to sharpen, but it's more consistent in a lot of ways. So again, I tried to get as much as a survival knife and a combat knife as I could without sacrificing too much of either one. I think this is pretty close. Again, it's not perfect, but nothing will be. But I think it'll serve me well. Yeah. So of course I got some survival tests and stuff to show more, which honestly that seems to be all you find when people are testing knives like these. They just like go out in the woods and test that kind of stuff. But sometimes, you know, some good old-fashioned water bottle slicing is all you really need. Kind of like that. Now I've got my knife and rough forged out, kind of drawing my pattern here. Kind of going with a drop point, I think is what that's called. Something a little more common with what I found in survival knives. I'm not gonna lie, I did a bunch of research on like different survival knives. You know, there's kind of like not really an in-between combat knife and survival knife. Well, I guess survival knife is, as described, a combination between like a tactical knife and a bushcraft knife. But almost all of them seem to lean more into like the bushcraft stuff. But I kind of want something a little more in between. But anyway, I still went with that point because a lot of them had it, and I do kind of like the look of it. So got a nice handle here. Hopefully something that holds pretty well. Gonna go with my micarta scales, same as I usually would for a knife like this. Partly because, again, I like the look, it's easy to work with, and still works when wet. That's actually something I don't really hear people talk about with survival knives. Like, every time they have them, they're always like some wood handle, or I mean, you see a lot of like rubber ones too, but those from out here kind of suck. But either like micarta, it's like if it gets wet, you can still use it. Like, you still hold it pretty well. It doesn't really get slippery, or at least as slippery as like wood would be. So that's what I'm going with for this knife. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling and start getting the shape I want. I've got my knife heat treated and tempered. I was already playing with it a little bit, and it actually cuts pretty well. So definitely not sharp enough yet, but it's actually decently sharp. Like, if I were to drop it, it would hurt. Anyway, I have my handle scales here drilled out. I usually use like a black canvas type material, but I
Yeah, I forgot to get some. And all I had lying around was some like painter's tarp. So I cut that up and made it a micarta. So what I'm going to do now is glue this into place with some JB Weld and some of these stainless steel tubes. That will be important later. So I'll get back to it when I'm ready to get this handle shaped.
Still got a good grip on it, even though my hand is now wet. Let's try this again. Still pretty sharp.